Oh, help me, DrSayus.
British sitcom Mr. Bean was a global phenomenon when it released on the 1st of January 1990. Despite only having 15 episodes, Rowan Atkinson, who played Mr. Bean, came up with the concept for the show where anyone could enjoy it regardless of their language. This was performed mostly through visual humour, almost like a silent film. On 5th of January 2002, the animated series version was released. It offered the same premise, though introduced other characters such as Mrs. Wicket. Rowan reprises his role, though for the first few seasons he had the easiest job in the world as his character barely speaks. This show lasted for 5 seasons spanning 52 episodes. Though not as iconic as the original, the animation offered more creative ways to show the adventures of Mr. Bean and was nearly as good. Despite the franchise's popularity, few game developers decided to capitalise on it over the years. The most well known that barely anyone knows about is Mr. Bean's Wacky World, which released on Wii, PS2, PC and DS. There's also a few mobile games, but who cares about those really? All of Mr. Bean's games seem to be based on the animated series. I'm guessing because that was easier to make a game out of. Game reception. There's a general consensus online that Mr. Bean's Wacky World is trash, with it even making it onto the Crappy Games wiki. It's here I found out Wacky World is just a reskin of Agent Hugo Lemon Twist. On that merit, it should be scored a 1 out of 10, but since I haven't played the latter, I'll judge it on its own merits. Both titles were published by Beyond Reality Games, roughly around the same year. Both use that awful stolen bomb texture from M&M's The Lost Formulas, made by Boston Animation on PS1. Looking at my criticisms, it's hard to come up with any positives for Wacky World, but I will try. Apparently the Wii and Windows versions have slightly better controls. I find that hard to believe. An extra area called In the Wild, which is the best looking one in my opinion. More mini games including garden/sewer racing, shooting gallery, garden/sewer/wild/factory tennis and more. I don't think players will find these redeeming qualities though. Even by minigame standards, they're all shallow. They all support 2-player, but the only one I would actually give a few goes is Pong, because it's Pong. Also, I'll just mention the advertising at the front and back of the box is completely false. If what was on the front cover was actually included, we might actually have a decent game on our hands. God forbid. Story. Starting Mr. Bean's Wacky World, I expected to see a brief cutscene explaining the plot of the game. Instead, I got a random clip of the animated TV series of Mr. Bean playing a jigsaw puzzle. Random clips of the cartoon are sprinkled throughout, but I can't show them or this video might get blocked like the live streams did. The clips shown are so blurry and brief you're better off not seeing them. Once the game begins, a text box appears saying Teddy has been stolen and you need to rescue him. Strange, as you also collect Teddy to restore your health. Spoilers. This is the only story you get as you never find out who stole Teddy. The ending is just a massive cage with a small floating Teddy inside. Gameplay. Despite being rated U for all, Wacky World can be tricky to play. There are signs everywhere you look, but none actually contain useful information. They just have brief obvious statements like deep pit and enemies near. There's no tutorial, so unless you have a manual, good luck figuring out the controls. Partway through, I realized there's various power-ups Mr. Bean can acquire. My favourite is the pirate hat, which is essentially the superstar of Super Mario. The rest I barely used, as they only stun enemies for a few seconds. You may as well just run past them. Bean apparently likes his cat biscuits, as there's plenty to collect in the game. Given the character's personality, it wouldn't surprise me if he ate them. Enemies can only be stunned for a few seconds, so they're always nicking your health. Speaking of which, enemies and objects are randomly scattered repeatedly across terrain, with no rhyme or reason. Expect to see a few Mrs. Wickets swinging their canes as lightsabers close together. Quite lazy. But there can also be an actual bomb you can carry to blow up doors. And yes, both of them use the same bomb explosion texture. There are 4 hubs, each containing 4 levels. To reach a new hub, you need to find all the puzzle pieces in each level. Thankfully, they're shown on the map, usually hidden under an object. Once they're all collected, the final hub level is unlocked. Here you join all the puzzle pieces together within a tight time limit. There's no aim assist, so you have to grab pieces of the Wiimote pointer. You can waste time trying to pick them up and fit them into other pieces. On top of this, you turn the Wiimote to rotate puzzle pieces, which, as you can probably guess, doesn't work right half the time. Either the pieces don't turn, or they turn too much and you have to rotate them all the way around again. At least these are the only motion control dependent levels. Other times are when you occasionally have to shoot a target with a slingshot using a pointer. It's a bit fiddly, but at least you aren't timed. Some levels have the optional time minigame of whack-a-mole, where you have to move the mallet with the control stick and swing the Wiimote. The problem is the holes are scattered all over, and the control stick doesn't properly navigate to them. The Wii motion is also delayed, so I got success by wildly swinging the Wiimote and waggling the control stick. You want to do this as these minigames increase Mr. Bean's health bar of teddies. The majority of the game doesn't involve motion controls, which is a plus. One of the first things you'll notice is Mr. Bean's parachute bounce. This makes jumping on platforms more difficult as you have little control in the air. Not ideal, but I got used to it. Audio. Some songs are repeated in later levels, as if we wouldn't notice. It all sounds like stock music, which is passable, but does get annoying as it's played in a constant loop. What's not redeemable is the sound effects. They're all bad, especially the ones used for bees and jumping. Sound effects are either too quiet or loud and obnoxious. Visuals. Mr. Bean's Wacky World looks like it was the developer's first game on Dreamcast. Cell shading of environments and character models is okay. The latter look close enough to how they do in the show. Just don't zoom in on Mr. Bean's face or you won't sleep well at night. The first level looks heavily inspired from Ninja Bread Man. A big difference is that instead of cookie holes on the ground, it's pink boils. Also, at least Ninja Bread Man follows the candy theme of its environment. Wacky World, on the other hand, chooses random themes that have nothing to do with the Mr. Bean franchise. To the game's credit, it's colourful. That's all I got. Verdict. Despite my criticisms, reskin aside, Mr. Bean's Wacky World isn't the worst game I've ever played. It plays just like a basic platformer, but I don't recommend anyone play it unless you're curious to just see how bad it is. Sadly, this is the best effort that was put into making a game about such a beloved franchise. Platforming in Hitler's garden, purple sewers and a farm doesn't make me think of Mr. Bean. In an unlikely event a new game gets made, I believe it should be a different genre and set in the same environments as in the show, be it the original or the cartoon. A point-and-click adventure with Mr. Bean solving various puzzles starting from his house before exploring outdoors would be the best fit in my opinion. Or if the developer had more resources, a GTA open world style game would much better suit the title of Mr. Bean's Wacky World. A man can dream. I give Mr. Bean's Wacky World a 3 out of 10, a D. It's unpleasant, but not the worst thing I've ever played. Hello guys, hope you're having a fantastic day. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like and to subscribe for more videos.